So this is a product called Siliphos from Dupla. So Dupla is one of the most pioneering German companies in our industry, put a lot of money into research. So this is basically a ferric iron based product, and I found it to be extremely effective. I don't trust any of the aluminium based phosphate removers. I've seen bad reactions with my corals, and I don't think they're very effective. I'd go for a ferric iron phosphate remover personally. So basically the way phosphate works is, if you want to reduce your algae, which is the main reason why you're inclined to start worrying about your phosphate, you put some of this media. It comes with a little bag. You put the media inside the bag, then you place it in your filter. You can dangle it in the aquarium, but better off in the filter. And then you test your phosphate level, and the amount that you've added, I always add more than they recommend, will suck the phosphate down a bit. It will also remove silicates, which tends to cause the brown algae. And then after a couple of weeks, I will test my level again, and if I've got it to 0, then I'll leave that media in there and check the phosphate every couple of weeks. And then once I start to see phosphate, then I can assume that this has run out of puff or efficiency, and then I will replace this again. I'll usually just delay it a little while, then as soon as I see any sort of level or see any inclination of starts of algae, I'll then replace this media again. For tanks like reef tanks, this is something that you really need to be aware of if you want to run low phosphates, because your fish are going to produce phosphates, and then the phosphates are going to grow algae. So if you use media such as this to lower your phosphate, then you'll get rid of your algae. And don't expect instant results, because the way it works is you add some phosphate media, and then you've got to get it down to 0, which might take a week or two. Then you've got to keep it at 0 for 3 weeks for the algae to start to die, and then you've got to keep it at 0 for a further 3 weeks for the algae to die off. And then that will usually give you a bit of a grace period. Then over a period of time you will start to get phosphate again, therefore you will start to get algae again. And so it's almost the same in reverse. About 3 weeks after you start getting phosphate, you'll start to get algae, and about 3 weeks after that, providing you've still got levels of phosphate, your algae will start to get pretty bad. So there's definitely a biological lag in the process of getting rid of algae and getting algae. And a lot of substrates and rocks, live rock, coral sand, that will all absorb phosphate into it. So therefore, when you start removing the phosphate, you've got to actually remove the phosphate in the water column, and you've also got to remove the phosphate which will then leach out of your rocks and out of your sand. And it's also really good at this point to do a bit of a water change and use a gravel cleaner and suck all of the solid crap that might be in the back of the reef that would be bounding up your phosphates, and also ensuring that you do a decent filter clean to remove any particles that may have accumulated in the filter, which may also bound up phosphate, and replace your polyfilters at the same time. And with this product, you can assure yourself of an algae-free reef aquarium. And it does work on all aquariums, not just reefs, but reefs are the main one that people will sort of go to this extent for. Because in the wild you've got corals, and they are from a nutrient-poor environment where you won't find algae, and then sort of 500 meters away from a natural coral reef you'll have a river, and the river will be higher in phosphate, full of algae with no live corals. So phosphate equals algae.